The cursed tower stood at the edge of the northern cliffs like a wound carved into the kingdom itself. Even from miles away, its black stone walls seemed to drink the moonlight instead of reflecting it. No birds flew above it. No wolves crossed its shadow. The people believed the tower was alive, cursed by ancient blood magic so dark that even death refused to remain inside it. For centuries, no one dared enter. Not after the screams. Not after the disappearances. Not after the kings before him sealed its gates with silver chains and holy runes. Yet on the coldest night of winter, Alpha King Kale stood before those gates with blood running down his knuckles and terror slowly destroying the calm expression he had worn his entire life. Because his wife was inside, the guards behind him trembled violently as the wind howled across the cliffs. "My king," one of them whispered carefully, "please, the tower cannot be entered." Kale did not move. Snow collected over his broad shoulders while his golden eyes remained fixed on the massive black doors ahead. The ancient runes carved into the tower walls glowed faintly red, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath dead stone. 3 hours earlier, his wife had vanished from the palace. No escrime, no straged, only an open balcony door and frozen footprints leading toward the forbidden cliffs. Toward this place, toward the tower, no soul ever returned from. Kale clenched his jaw so tightly pain shot through his skull. He could still remember the last thing she said before sunset. "You look tired," Lyra had whispered softly while touching his face. "When was the last time you slept peacefully?" He had almost smiled then. Almost. But kings were not allowed peace. Especially not alpha kings born into war. Now, that memory felt like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. "She's alive," Kale said finally, his voice low and dangerous. "I can feel her bond." The guards exchanged terrified looks. Mated bonds between wolves were sacred. Emotional. Spiritual. Impossible to sever easily. And Kale was right. Somewhere beyond those cursed walls, the bond still existed. Weak. Shaking. Suffering. But alive. Suddenly Kale stepped forward. The soldiers immediately panicked. "My king, you cannot go inside. The curse will consume you." One older warrior grabbed Kale's arm desperately, his weathered face pale with fear. "Your father sealed that tower himself after the massacre. Thousands died in there." Kale slowly looked down at the hand touching him. The older warrior instantly released him, because there was something horrifying in the Alpha King's eyes tonight. Fear, not for himself, for her. And fear made dangerous men become monsters. "If the gods themselves trapped her in there," Kale said quietly, "then tonight the gods will learn to fear me too." Before anyone could stop him, he ripped the ancient silver chains from the gates. The sound echoed across the cliffs like thunder. Then the tower doors slowly opened. Darkness waited inside. Not ordinary darkness. Living darkness. It moved strangely across the stone halls beyond the entrance, breathing slowly like smoke trapped beneath water. Every instinct inside, Kale screamed at him to run. But then he felt it. Lyra. Pain. Fear. Crying. The bond between them pulsed violently in his chest. And without hesitation, Kale walked inside the cursed tower. The door slammed shut behind him instantly. Silence consumed everything. For several seconds, Kale could hear only his own breathing. The air smelled ancient. Rotting. Wrong. The walls were covered in black symbols scratched deep into the stone, symbols older than the kingdom itself. Some appeared wet, as though freshly carved by bleeding fingers. Kale reached for the sword at his waist. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, whispers filled the hallway. Soft, broken, endless. "You failed her, she begged for you. You were too late." Kale's body froze. The voices sounded real. Too real. His jaw tightened as he forced himself forward through the endless corridor. Then the tower changed. The walls trembled. The hallway stretched unnaturally long. And suddenly Kale was no longer inside the tower. He stood inside his childhood home. His breathing stopped. Impossible. Warm firelight flickered across familiar wooden walls. The scent of pine filled the air. Somewhere nearby, a woman was singing softly. His mother. Kale slowly turned. There she was, alive, standing near the fireplace exactly as she had before the night she died. For one impossible moment, the Alpha King forgot how to breathe. "Kale," she whispered lovingly. Pain exploded inside his chest. "No," he muttered immediately. "You are not real." But she smiled sadly. "You were always lonely." His hands trembled violently. The tower was inside his mind, digging through memories, using grief against him. "You cannot save me either," the illusion whispered gently. Kale shut his eyes. The memory of blood flooded back instantly. His mother screaming, the assassins, his own helplessness as a child. Rage burst through him like wildfire. With a violent roar, Kale slashed his sword through the illusion. Everything shattered instantly. The warm cabin disappeared. The tower returned. But now blood covered the floor beneath his boots. Fresh blood. Kale's heart nearly stopped. "Lyra." He dropped to one knee, touching the crimson trail with shaking fingers. It was warm, very recent. The bond inside him pulsed harder. She was close. Then he heard it. A scream. Her scream. Raw terror ripped through the tower like broken glass. "Kale!" The sound shattered every remaining piece of restraint inside him. The Alpha King ran. Dark hallways twisted around him unnaturally, while whispers screamed from every direction. Shadows moved beside him. Hands clawed from the walls. The tower itself seemed alive now, trying desperately to slow him down. But Kale no longer cared about curses, or death, or fear. All he could hear was her voice. Then suddenly the corridor ended. Kale stopped violently. Before him stood a massive circular chamber illuminated by red fire. And in the center of the room, Lyra was chained above a black abyss. Her white dress stained with blood, her body trembling weakly. And beneath her, something enormous moved inside the darkness below. Something breathing, something ancient. Lyra slowly lifted her head. The moment her tear-filled eyes found him, relief and horror collided across her face. "Don't come closer," she whispered weakly. But Kale already stepped forward. Then the creature beneath her finally opened its eyes. Two enormous golden eyes, exactly like his. And for the first time in years, the Alpha King felt true fear. The creature beneath the abyss stared at Kale with glowing golden eyes that mirrored his own so perfectly it felt like looking into a nightmare reflection of himself. The chamber trembled with every breath the beast took beneath the darkness, chains rattling violently around Lyra's fragile body. Kale could smell her blood from where he stood. It ignited something feral inside him. "Move away from her," he growled. His voice echoed across the chamber like distant thunder. But the creature only laughed, not with a mouth, with the tower itself. The walls vibrated. The fire darkened. A low monstrous sound rolled through the stone like ancient amusement awakening after centuries of sleep. Lyra shook her head desperately. "Kale, please listen to me." He took another step forward. Instantly the chains around her throat tightened. She gasped painfully. Kale froze. Rage exploded through his veins so violently his wolf nearly surfaced. His claws extended unconsciously as golden energy flickered beneath his skin. "Touch her again," he said quietly, "and I will burn this entire tower to ash." The abyss below Lyra suddenly moved. A gigantic shape slowly emerged from the darkness beneath the chamber. Black fur, massive horns, eyes glowing like molten gold. The beast was enormous, larger than any wolf Kale had ever seen. Ancient scars covered its monstrous body, and strange runes burned across its flesh like cursed fire. But what terrified Kale most was the familiar scent. The creature smelled like royal blood. Like him, Lyra's trembling voice broke the silence. "It knows you." Kale's gaze never left the monster. "What is this thing?" The beast smiled. Again, not with lips, with energy. The room bent unnaturally as whispers flooded the chamber. "He does not remember. The last heir forgot. The bloodline buried the truth." Kale suddenly felt pressure inside his skull. Pain. Images flashed violently through his mind. Fire. Screaming soldiers. A throne covered in blood. then a towering black beast kneeling before an ancient king. No, Kale muttered, gripping his head. The visions intensified. He saw a massive battlefield beneath a crimson moon. Wolves ripped each other apart, while humans burned alive between them. At the center stood a younger version of his father, holding a sword made of silver flame. And, chained beside him, this same creature. The memory vanished instantly. Kale stumbled backward, breathing hard. Lyra watched him with tears in her eyes. The tower is showing you the truth. What truth? Her lips trembled. That your family lied. Silence consumed the chamber. The beast below them growled softly, almost approvingly. Kale's chest rose heavily as he stared at his wife. Explain. But before Lyra could speak, the tower suddenly screamed. Every wall cracked violently. Darkness burst from the abyss like smoke, wrapping around Kale's body. Instantly, his worst memories flooded into him again. His mother dying, his father's coldness, years of war, the loneliness, the guilt, the unbearable fear of losing Lyra. The tower fed on suffering, and Kale was drowning in it. He dropped to one knee as shadows clawed into his mind. You cannot save her. You destroy everything you love. She fears the monster inside you. Kale roared violently. Power exploded from his body, sending dark energy crashing across the chamber walls. The whispers vanished instantly. For several seconds, only silence remained. Then Lyra began crying softly. Kale looked up at her, confused by the pain in her expression. What? Her voice cracked. That power, the realization hit him slowly. The energy that exploded from him moments ago looked exactly like the cursed darkness surrounding the beast. No, impossible. Kale stared at his own hands. Dark veins pulsed beneath his skin before disappearing again. The beast below him finally spoke with a voice deep enough to shake the chamber itself. You are the last vessel. Cold fear slid down Kale's spine. What are you talking about? The creature slowly rose higher from the abyss until its massive face stood level with Lyra's chained body. Thousands of ancient runes covered its forehead. You carry my blood. Kale immediately stepped backward. That's impossible. But deep inside, something ancient stirred. A forgotten instinct. A darkness sleeping beneath generations of royal control. Lyra shut her eyes painfully. Your ancestors made a pact centuries ago. Kale looked at her sharply. The first Alpha King was losing a war against the northern kingdoms, she whispered. So he made a deal with something that lived beneath these mountains. The beast's golden eyes glowed brighter. He offered blood, it growled. And in return, I gave kings power. Kale felt sick. No, the royal bloodline was never blessed, Lyra said softly through tears. It was cursed. The chamber suddenly grew colder. Every story Kale had been told as a child echoed differently now. The unnatural strength of Alpha Kings. The violent rage. The madness some rulers suffer before death. The reason his father feared this tower so much. It was not prison. It was a seal. For their bloodline. Kale slowly looked toward the beast again. What are you? The creature stared at him silently for several moments before answering. I was once called Velkin. The name itself made the tower shake. Ancient. Forbidden. Powerful. A god. Kale whispered. Velkin's monstrous eyes darkened with bitterness. No, something worse. Suddenly Lyra cried out in pain. The chains around her wrists began glowing red-hot, burning into her skin. Kale instantly rushed forward. Stop! Velkin's roar shook the entire chamber. She entered willingly. Kale froze. Slowly, painfully, he looked at Lyra. Her tears fell harder now. I came here to stop the curse. His heartbeat stopped. What? I found the truth weeks ago, she whispered. About your blood. About the tower. About what would happen to you. Kale stared at her in disbelief. She had known? All this time? You lied to me, he said quietly. Pain flashed across her face. I was trying to save you. By coming here alone, you were changing, Kale. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. You stopped sleeping. Your rage became uncontrollable. Your eyes, her voice trembled harder. Sometimes they weren't yours anymore. Kale felt cold, because she was right. The darkness inside him had been growing for months. He just never wanted to admit it. The curse awakens fully during the blood moon. Lyra continued weakly. Tomorrow night. Kale's chest tightened. And if it awakens completely, Velkin growled from below. The king will no longer remain human. The chamber fell silent again. Then Kale finally understood. This tower was never trying to kill him. It was waiting for him. And somewhere deep beneath the fear rising inside him, something ancient was waiting to be set free. Kale stood motionless while the truth settled inside him like poison spreading through his veins. The cursed chamber felt smaller now, suffocating beneath the weight of everything he had just learned. His entire bloodline had been built upon a monster. Every Alpha King before him carried the curse. And by tomorrow night, during the blood moon, he would become something no longer human. The thought should have terrified him most. Instead, only one thing mattered. Lyra, still chained above the abyss, still bleeding, still suffering because she tried to save him alone. Kale slowly lifted his eyes toward her. Why didn't you tell me? Pain filled her expression immediately. Because I know you, she whispered. You would have sacrificed yourself without hesitation. And you thought I would let you do this instead? Her lips parted slightly, but no answer came. Because they both knew the truth. He would have burned kingdoms for her. And she would have died to protect him. That was the tragedy of love. The tower suddenly trembled violently beneath them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Velkin's massive form shifted inside the abyss, golden eyes narrowing toward the dark sky above the tower. The moon rises, the beast growled. Kale looked upward instinctively. Far above the cracked ceiling windows, crimson light slowly spread across the clouds. The blood moon was beginning. Instantly, pain exploded inside Kale's body. He staggered violently, dropping to one knee as something inside him twisted unnaturally. His bones burned. His muscles tightened painfully beneath his skin. Then he heard it. A heartbeat. Not his own. Ancient. Massive. Hungry. Velkin smiled darkly. The curse remembers its vessel. Kale gritted his teeth as black veins slowly spread across his arms. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. Kale! He tried to stand, but another wave of agony crashed through him. A low growl escaped his throat, deeper than human, more monstrous than wolf. The tower reacted immediately. Shadows climbed the walls. The runes burned brighter. And somewhere beneath the stone floors, ancient chains began breaking one by one. Velkin inhaled slowly, like a predator scenting freedom after centuries of imprisonment. Yes, the beast whispered. I can feel the seal weakening. Kale forced himself upright despite the pain tearing through him. His golden eyes flickered violently between human and something darker. Tell me how to stop this. Velkin laughed softly. There is no stopping blood. Suddenly Lyra screamed. The chains around her body tightened again, forcing blood down her arms. Kale immediately moved toward her, but the abyss between them suddenly widened unnaturally, stretching the chamber apart like reality itself was breaking. You cannot reach her, Velkin said calmly. Kale's breathing became ragged. Then I'll kill you. The beast's eyes glowed brighter with amusement. You cannot kill what lives inside you. Those words struck harder than any blade, because deep down, Kale could feel it. The darkness awakening inside him did not feel foreign anymore. It felt familiar, like something sleeping in his soul had finally opened its eyes. Another violent pain ripped through his spine. Kale roared as claws tore from his fingertips completely now. Black energy exploded around him, cracking the stone beneath his feet. Lyra cried softly at the sight. Not from fear, from heartbreak. You're fighting it, she whispered desperately. Kale's entire body trembled violently. Sweat covered his face while shadows wrapped around his arms like living creatures. I won't become this thing. Velkin's expression darkened slightly for the first time. You already are. Suddenly the chamber shifted again. The walls dissolved into darkness. And Kale found himself standing somewhere else entirely. A battlefield. Dead wolves covered the ground beneath crimson snow. Fire consumed distant forests while thousands of bodies lay frozen beneath the night sky. Kale's breathing slowed. A memory, not his own. At the center of the battlefield stood the first Alpha King. Massive, terrifying, his armor soaked in blood. And beside him stood Velkin, not chained, not imprisoned, but free. Together, they slaughtered armies like gods of destruction. Kale watched in horror as the first king raised his sword toward kneeling enemies. Power demands sacrifice, the ancient king declared coldly. Then children were dragged forward. Kale's stomach twisted. No, the children were offered to Velkin. Blood for power, souls for victory. The beast devoured them without mercy. Kale stumbled backward, horrified. This is what your kingdom was built upon. Velkin's voice echoed through the vision. Fear, blood, monstrosity. The battlefield suddenly vanished. Kale returned to the tower, gasping heavily. Lyra watched him with tears streaming silently down her face. You saw it, she whispered. His hands shook violently. My family, his voice cracked. They fed innocent people to that thing. Velkin remained silent, because denial was no longer possible. Everything Kale believed about honor, legacy, and kingship had rotted from the beginning. Rage slowly replaced shock inside him. Not toward Lyra, not toward himself, toward the men who created this curse and buried the truth beneath generations of lies. You used us, Kale growled at Velkin. The beast tilted its massive head slightly. No, your ancestors used me first. Silence followed. Then Velkin's gaze slowly shifted toward Lyra. But she changed everything. Kale immediately stepped protectively forward despite the pain destroying his body. The beast studied him carefully. For centuries, every Alpha King eventually surrendered to the darkness willingly. Rage always consumed them. Velkin's voice deepened. But you, Kale's chest rose heavily. You fear becoming a monster more than you fear death. The chamber grew quieter. Even the shadows slowed. And suddenly Kale understood something terrifying. The curse was not awakening through hatred. It was awakening through pain, through fear, through the desperate need to protect. Every violent emotion inside him fed it further. Lyra realized it too. Kale, her voice trembled urgently. You have to calm your mind. Another scream escaped her lips as the chains burned deeper into her skin. Kale instantly lost control again. Dark power erupted through the chamber. Velkin smiled. There it is. Kale dropped to one knee as monstrous growls echoed from his throat uncontrollably now. His vision blurred violently. The world smelled different. Stronger. He could hear Lyra's heartbeat. Could hear the blood moving through her veins. The hunger terrified him. No, he whispered weakly. His wolf was changing, becoming something ancient, something unnatural. Then suddenly Lyra did something unexpected. She smiled softly through tears. The sight nearly broke him. You remember the first winter after we were married? She whispered gently. Kale struggled to focus on her voice. You took me into the mountains because I said I'd never seen snow fall properly before. The darkness inside him hesitated slightly. You hated the cold, he muttered weakly. A small laugh escaped her despite everything. And you carried me the entire way because I kept slipping. Kale's breathing slowly steadied. She kept speaking softly. You are not your ancestors. The black veins beneath his skin trembled. You are not this curse. The hunger weakened slightly. You are the man who stayed awake for 3 nights when I got sick because you thought I stopped breathing once. Kale shut his eyes painfully. Memories flooded into him now. Not war, not blood. Her smile, her laughter, her warmth beside him at night. And slowly, the monster inside him began retreating. Velkin's expression changed instantly. For the first time since Kale entered the tower, the ancient beast no longer looked amused. It looked worried. For the first time in centuries, fear appeared inside Velkin's glowing golden eyes. Not fear of warriors, not fear of magic, fear of something far more dangerous. Love. The chamber trembled violently as the blood moon reached its highest point above the tower. Crimson light poured through the cracks in the ceiling like bleeding fire, covering Kale's body in shadows and red flame. But the darkness inside him had changed. Moments ago, it felt uncontrollable. Hungry. Savage. Now it struggled, because Lyra's voice still echoed inside him stronger than the curse itself. "You are not your ancestors." Kale slowly rose to his feet. The black veins remained beneath his skin, but they no longer spread wildly. His breathing steadied while his golden eyes locked on a Velkin with terrifying calmness. The beast sensed it immediately. "The bond weakens the transformation," Velkin growled darkly. Kale wiped blood from the corner of his mouth. No, his voice became colder. "It weakens you." The tower screamed. Walls cracked open as ancient magic exploded through the chamber. Velkin rose higher from the abyss now, his full monstrous body finally visible beneath the crimson moonlight. He was enormous. Black wings unfolded behind him slowly, scarred by centuries of imprisonment. Horns curved from his skull like twisted crowns while chains wrapped around his body, disappearing into the depths below the tower. Not chains holding him prisoner. Chains holding him back. "You think love makes you strong?" Velkin thundered. "Love is what destroys kings." Kale looked toward Lyra, still chained, still suffering, still believing in him even now. Then he remembered every moment that made him fear becoming weak. Every war, every betrayal, every lesson his father forced into him as a child. Kings must not love too deeply. Love creates weakness. Love creates hesitation. But standing inside this cursed tower, Kale finally understood the truth. Love was the only reason he had not become a monster already. The realization changed something inside him completely. The darkness stopped fighting him. Instead, it obeyed him. Power surged through Kale's body violently, but this time it no longer felt wild or corrupted. Golden energy mixed with the black shadows surrounding him, creating something entirely new. Velkin's eyes widened slightly. "Impossible." Kale stepped forward calmly while cracks spread beneath his feet. "You fed on fear for centuries," the Alpha King said quietly. "But you were never the strongest thing inside this bloodline." The beast snarled. Then the entire chamber exploded into chaos. Velkin lunged first. The roar alone shattered stone pillars as the massive creature surged from the abyss toward Kale with claws large enough to tear through mountains. Kale did not move. At the last possible second, he caught the beast's wrist. The impact shook the entire tower. Shock flashed across Velkin's face. Kale's strength had changed. Dark energy erupted around both of them as the Alpha King forced the creature backward for the first time in history. Then Kale attacked. His fist collided with Velkin's jaw hard enough to split the chamber walls apart. The beast crashed across the floor, destroying ancient pillars beneath its enormous body. Lyra stared in disbelief. Kale was no longer fighting like a man. He moved like something born from the curse itself. Velkin roared furiously, black fire exploding from his mouth. Kale barely avoided the flames as they melted stone instantly upon contact. The tower began collapsing around them. Chunks of ceiling crashed downward, while ancient runes flickered violently across every wall. "The seal is breaking," Lyra screamed. Velkin rose again, fury twisting his monstrous face. "If I fall," the beast thundered, "this tower falls with me." Kale's eyes narrowed instantly. The tower was connected to Velkin. Destroying him completely could kill everyone inside, including Lyra. Velkin realized it too, and smiled. "You cannot save her and destroy me at the same time." For several seconds, silence consumed the collapsing chamber. Then Kale slowly looked toward his wife. Their eyes met, and both of them understood immediately. Sacrifice. Lyra shook her head desperately before he could speak. "No." Kale's expression softened painfully. "This ends tonight." Tears filled her eyes instantly. There has to be another way. But Kale already knew the truth. The curse existed through his bloodline, which meant only one thing could truly destroy it forever. The final heir. Himself. Darkness slowly gathered around Kale's body again, stronger than before. Velkin sensed what he intended immediately. You would kill yourself? The beast hissed. Kale's gaze never left Lyra. If my death frees her, he whispered, I would do it 1,000 times. Lyra broke into sobs. No. Kale smiled weakly at her. It was the same soft smile he gave her the night they first met. The same smile she fell in love with long before she ever became queen. I'm sorry, he whispered. Then Kale unleashed everything. Power exploded through the tower like a dying star. Golden light and black shadows collided violently around him, while the curse inside his blood awakened completely one final time. Vulcan screamed, not in anger, in terror, because Kale was not surrendering to the darkness. He was dragging it down with him. The chains binding the tower shattered instantly. Ancient runes burned white-hot across the walls while the abyss beneath them collapsed into endless light. Vulcan lunged desperately toward Lyra. Kale intercepted him immediately. Both monsters collided in midair as the tower began tearing itself apart around them. Stone exploded. Fire consumed the chamber. And for one brief moment, Lyra saw Kale completely transformed. Massive black wings, golden eyes glowing like stars. A king born from darkness itself. Yet even then, when he looked at her, there was still humanity in his eyes. Still love. Vulcan roared as Kale dragged him toward the collapsing abyss. You fool, the beast screamed. Without me, your kingdom loses its power. Kale's grip tightened, then let it. The final explosion consumed everything. Light swallowed the tower. The cliff shattered beneath ancient magic. And then, silence. Complete silence. Days later, the kingdom gathered beneath gray winter skies at the ruins of the cursed tower. Nothing remained except broken stone and ash. The curse was gone. For the first time in centuries, wolves crossing the northern cliffs no longer whimpered in fear. The darkness had disappeared completely, but so had the Alpha King. Many believed he died, destroying the tower. Others whispered the curse dragged him into the abyss forever. Lyra heard all of it silently, yet she never believed any of them, because deep inside her chest, the bond still existed. Weak, faint, but alive. 3 months later, during the first snowfall of winter, Lyra stood alone on the palace balcony, watching snowflakes fall across the kingdom. The cold wind brushed against her face gently. Then suddenly, warm arms wrapped around her from behind. Her breath stopped. For one impossible second, she could not move. Then his familiar voice whispered softly beside her ear. You still hate the cold. Lyra broke instantly. Tears flooded her eyes as she turned around and saw him standing there alive. Kale, weaker, scarred, human, no glowing eyes, no darkness, just him. She crashed into his arms, sobbing while he held her like he never intended to let go again. And for the first time in his entire life, the former Alpha King felt truly free.